job yesterday. Actually, pretty unknown, came pretty much from nowhere to beat out Eternity, who are a team that have been around for quite a while.
Yeah, indeed. We saw a lot of interesting games yesterday, and it was some Yasuo play, which was also interesting, since that's the first time I've ever casted Yasuo in competitive play, and I'm sure it was for you as well, Stress. And we saw him in two different roles, so in both of those games he didn't do exceptionally well, but he brought some interesting abilities for the entire team to the table, such as the ability to go for Baron super quickly and being able to like duel people in places where you wouldn't typically have that damage in your composition. Especially when he's played top lane, you're generally looking at just like tanks at top lane who grind you down and also have a lot of damage inbuilt to their kit, but very different playstyle. Either way, we won't be seeing that this game, and we will be illuminated onto the last couple picks that we didn't quite catch at the end of Champion Select.
Yeah, it was Katarina for the side of MYM, and then Cloud9 picked up Karma. So Katarina was actually a legitimate pickup. It wasn't any kind of placeholder as I was expecting. And Katarina is a champion that we haven't seen in a little while, about halfway through Season 3. We went through that phase, if you remember, of everybody building Warmogs on Katarina in the top lane. It's not going to be a top lane Cat in this game because we've got Mundo, but it's just nice to see Cat returning to her non-annoying mid lane style.
Yeah, it is, and I'm taking a look at the Karma pick, which is typically picked up sometimes with Sivir. We made that comment yesterday, and this time is actually going to be picked alongside the Lucian, and is most likely going to be in that support role since we have the Kha'Zix already being brought out, which will be either in the top lane or jungle. So there's a lot of ambiguous picks, and I'm thinking about the common pick, and it's generally picked alongside, say, Mundo and Shyvana, and I don't know how much Shyvana needs that extra utility, but it just allows your team to be even more mobile when their team is already extremely mobile.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Mobility right now just seems to be one of the key factors in team compositions, and there's a lot of mobility on the side of Cloud9, that's for certain. We are going to head to a very quick break here, guys, as we are in the delay. Welcome back. It's game number 1 between Meet Your Makers and Cloud9 Europe in the semi-finals. Yes, this is only a semi-finals. I actually don't believe that, but this is going to be an amazing set of games here between these two teams, and I cannot wait. We're in game 1. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, like this could easily be a grand finals game here, Stress, but because of the competition being so incredibly stiff, triple LoL and Super EU Team Kappa in the other side of the bracket is pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've got to a point where there are just so many good teams that both sides of the bracket are stacked. It's so difficult to have an 18 tournament and not have a double stacked bracket. I'm just so happy that we've got so many good teams here in the Scan Invitational.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things we need to start talking about, because there's no action in the early game, is probably the Katarina pick, because it's not something we've seen very often, and it'll be interesting to see how she actually builds, because some people are going with the kind of line of thought that she should be building more tanky, or just raw damage, and just literally playing off your skill, trying to get that instant reset, and kind of got the Kha'Zix principle thing going on in a split second.
Yeah, it's not a matchup that we see very often either picked into a Kassadin. You have to feel that Chuyu, also known as Corey, who's a sub for MYM, was in the team before Charu came back. We discussed that slightly yesterday. But yeah, you've got to feel that he's confident in his Katarina here, so it must have worked out for him before. Kat is another melee champion, although you can farm with Bouncing Blades and also the W to get farm. That's normally how Katarina will push a wave in, but for the early levels, we'll have to come in range of Kassadin, so looking to see how this lane will work out during the early game. You have to wonder whether Chuyu is that experienced in this lane. I feel he must be pretty confident.
Yeah, absolutely. So, taking a look at top lane, it's Mundo and Shyvana. What a surprise. Two of the best top laners at the moment. And Shyvana will gradually push Mundo out in the first couple of levels, and that will kind of be less relevant as you get the more levels after that, when you get like level 6 and then following that. So, not too many interesting things up in that top lane, but the bottom lane will have Karma and Lucian.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a mismatch, as we said. We'd more expect Karma picked with the Sivir, although Karma does do very well just in the support role in general. She has a lot of what you need as a support. You're gaining mobility, the ability to shield, damage as well from harass. So a very strong support champion in her own right, just not often picked with Lucian.
Yeah, indeed. She's definitely picked for that utility as you get later on into the game. And against Makler and Libic, who's playing two very long-range bot laners, it's going to be very difficult for Karma to ever get close to land the Q harass, to ever land the Terror before it's instantly broken. So Karma's effectiveness in this lane is going to be basically mitigated. But after the Caitlyn pick was brought in response to Lucian, there was no reason to pick an aggressive support because it won't be working out anyway.
And this lane between Katarina and Kassadin in the middle is already starting to push in for Chuyu. Clearly, this is Chuyu's strategy here. He's just going to shove in and try and force Kassadin to farm under tower in these early levels, try and get him to miss as much CS as possible. And of course, while Katarina's not quite as mobile as Kassadin is, obviously Riftwalk becoming available so often, he will be able to roam a lot, just like Ku is doing up to the top lane.
Yeah, looking for this very early gank. They should be tanky enough to get in and get out. First blood picked up by Shyvana, instantly cancelling their tower aggro. Only one tower shot, smooth.
Yeah, and when you're playing a Mundo and getting pushed in like that, you have to expect that kind of play, especially out of a Kha'Zix, because he needs those early kills to start ticking things over. That one goes to Shyvana, which is going to consolidate the lane advantage, but the teleport actually gets cancelled out by Kuban there. It looks like they had a couple of problems as Kuban had to pause the game.
Yeah, that might have been... it might have been a bug or something, or he disconnected, because cancelling the teleport would have been not very good at that point.
Yeah, well, I mean, unless he just didn't want Odoamne and Ku to rotate around and kill him when he got there. I mean, that's one option, because he would have been slightly exposed out in that river, but I don't know. It just seems like there was maybe a couple of little issues there, and he didn't feel confident in teleporting in. Obviously, he will have a reduced cooldown on teleport when you cancel it, so it's not quite as detrimental as, teleporting in somewhere normally then dying. That tends to be a worse thing to happen. So I think erring on the side of caution is a better play by Kuban.
Yeah, very possible. Vi was sitting around, but again, they could just easily dive that for a second time. Makata is not going to be very tanky, especially up against the Kha'Zix and Shyvana, who just both deal absurd amounts of damage in the early game. So, again, in the bottom lane, I just expect this lane to be quite passive. The kill potential from, like, Makler and Libic is not that high. They can poke away and maybe they can get a kill after someone's whittled down enough. But Jonan, he is just going to sit back and farm. Like, he doesn't have to try and trade, especially with a Karma. They'll maybe wait for a couple levels, see the opportunity if they can go for it. But apart from that, unless there's jungler intervention, not too much going to happen.
And there's something really interesting in this game that's kind of put a smile on my face, and I'm chuckling about it, because I've only just looked at the itemizations. How many shields do these teams need? 6 Doran's shields to begin the game. I mean, Doran's Shield is a great item. It's really good for keeping you safe in lane. Supports we've seen picking it up even more frequently with the advent of the ward trinkets means you don't quite have to buy so many wards in each lane, so you're safer to buy those Doran's items to begin the game. Never seen 6 to begin a game, though.
Yeah, it's nice to see it on supports because it means they'll be better at trading, and sometimes they'll be a little more scrappy in the bottom lane, but definitely in like the mid lane, the top lane, it makes sense. You just don't generally expect to see it every single game, and I'm sure there's a joke here to be made, but I'm not seeing it this early in the morning.
No, I'm not sure about that either, but I'm sure we'll get there at some point. But I think it's kind of an advent of this whole prolonging the game again. It looks like the laning phase is getting drawn out a little bit more back to how it was in Season 2, and I think that's why we're seeing these Doran shields and tankier builds. Meanwhile, in mid lane, Forbidden is trying to get as much damage onto Chuyu as possible.
Yeah, he was just pushing him down, but the flash was actually burnt. So already in this lane we've had some action, which is not one of the lanes you typically expect action to happen, especially when they don't really have any finishing ability pre-6. Makata just going to walk around the mid lane, so maybe at level 6 he might have been able to finish Cat off, but that flash is going to be a little bit annoying.
90 caliber knight used in that bottom lane out by Makler just to avoid the rest of the damage coming from Voidal, and just back and forth, the support's trading crowd control in that lane. No one really able to convert that into a kill, though.
Yeah, so we spoke a little bit about the Kha'Zix jungle in the previous day here, Stress, and we said it was a little bit more risky in the sense that, one, you need to get kills or just completely farm your jungle, and there is enough gold in the jungle now to sustain a damage build from your jungler, and you have a tanky top laner and a reasonably tanky mid lane, so you have two assassins, and how do you think this composition is going to work out as we get not only into team fights, but kind of the rest of the game? Because they have great mobility and great catching potential, as almost demonstrated mid laners. Ku is waiting for that gank to happen. Forbidden is on very low mana, just trying to bait this one out, and Ku, with one good isolation Q, should be able to take him down. But doesn't seem too keen to go in just yet. He is now moving towards Chuyu, but unbeknownst to him, is Mokata just below him, and in fact nothing will actually happen.
Yeah, I was gonna say if that gank comes off, that could be good for their composition, but here comes the gank from Mokata. Nothing on in the lane that time, and both of these junglers just trying to keep us on our toes by trying to get into lane, but it's not quite available. They're so mobile in that middle lane that Ku is actually going to head up towards the top lane, but he's warded up there. No chance of a gank there.
Yeah, so it's a fairly passive start, I think we can all agree on that, but you know, it's just building up the tension for the rest of the game, and both these guys know exactly what's on the line, and especially against Cloud9 and the opposing team of Meet Your Makers, it's two of one of the best teams in Europe right now in terms of the challenger scene.
Yeah, of course, we saw Meet Your Makers yesterday in the promotion qualifiers just miss out on an LCS spot with their games against Super Hot Crew. So MYM are definitely a team that are competing at that top level. So great to see that. And even at this stage of the tournament, I still can't get over the fact that this is a semi-finals.
Indeed, we quite could easily be streaming the other game and be seeing the exact same thing here, Stress. So I'm sure the grand finals be even more amazing than this, but not sure how that could happen. So Mokata just taking up the invisible blue buff as usual, and just going on to the second buffs with very little action. The next couple minutes, because everyone's been farming, might accelerate the game into an earlier dragon, but we'll see.
Yeah, we can look at the itemization here in the middle lane as well, to kind of take an indicator of the objectives of the champions right now. You can see Katarina's picked up the Sorcerer's Boots for the extra penetration here, and it looks like they're trying to get the gank in bot.
Yeah, ultimate used by Chuyu, and it's not quite enough damage to finish them off. Makler does not hit level 6 just yet. Only a couple minions off, unfortunately. That would have been an ace in the hole and surely a kill on either of those targets. So Katarina just going to walk back up to mid lane, and it's a fairly short cooldown on ultimate. Not going to be too unhappy with that result.
Yeah, as you said, short cooldown and able to move around the map quite quickly as well, so gets herself back into the mid lane, doesn't even let Kassadin catch up in the CS, but Kassadin's gone for the tier of the Goddess, and that's a fairly standard play as you'd imagine out of a Kassadin. See that most games, so Forbidden fairly confident on his Kassadin play. Of course he would be picking it so early in the rotation, but he's under pressure now.
Yeah, Mokata's arrived in the mid lane, but already isolated, so Ku's damage from his Taste Their Fear has been amplified. That's a very easy kill.
And they'll just fall back to their own jungle, make sure that they can consolidate their lead here after picking up that kill. Once again, we're back up in the top lane with the two two tanky top lanes hitting off against each other, and that's just not going to be a very active lane for much longer, as both will just go back to farming.
Yeah, I don't think they're hitting on the other, because that would be very strange.
Yes,
here, Stress.
sorry. That's, I received a message from one of our other teams halfway through that sentence, and yeah, that's
it didn't
what
end
happened.
very well.
No, that's what happened.
But Dragon has gone to the team of Cloud9 with their superb objective control, and as we've mentioned already many times, the isolation damage from Kha'Zix not only good at killing people, but killing objectives like Dragon.
Yes, very good at that indeed. So Cloud9 repeating what we saw from them yesterday with their ability to control the map and control objectives. Chuyu just going to go aggressive in that mid lane constantly, trying to just keep as much of that lead as possible. They really don't want Kassadin to start roaming around, because Kassadin's a champion that as soon as you get your core items and as soon as you start to roam, 1 or 2 kills will make you pretty much unstoppable, as you're so difficult to deal with. It's so difficult to stop a Kassadin from getting to the backline on Chuyu.
Yeah, perfect time to shun Poe, but again, isolation damage into the Void Spikes picks up another kill for Ku.
And that will go a long way. We mentioned already, Kha'Zix just needs those early kills. Not quite as important as it used to be, but still, early kills on Kha'Zix can really help you shut out a game pretty quickly. And Cloud9 already with a 2,000 gold lead here at 10 minutes into the game. Looks like they're ramping up for that kind of acceleration we saw from them yesterday.
And it looks like Ku's going to go for a build which is kind of centered around like a laning build, where he just goes for the triple longsword. I'll be sure he'll pick that up, unless he just goes for the Spirit of the Lizard Elder, which is another option in the jungle, and has picked up the boots of mobility, because he just needs the mobility to get across the map, look for these ganks, which he's done already. So everyone looking strong on Cloud9, building up this early advantage, but it doesn't tell the tale of the rest of the game just yet.
Yeah, it's one of those things that Longsword builds into so many items that it can be difficult when you pick up 2 or 3 on Kha'Zix to be like, well, I think he's doing this, but I have a feeling he'll probably just go for the Elder Lizard, as we've seen. Oh no, it's actually Brutalizer. As I say that, he does pick up Brutalizer, so...
That's why you shouldn't call anything on Longsword.
No, I know. I should never call things on Longsword. Well played, Pulse. You bested me in this one-upsmanship today.
There we go. I'm sure you'll get me back later. It always happens, but...
It's always when you look away from the item board. Always. But
the commentator's curse, but... alas.
Curse to be wrong.
Yeah, but anyway, so top lane, we've got Shyvana again itemizing in a very aggressive way, and Forbidden aggressing in a very aggressive way onto Kuban underneath this tower. Dragon Descent comes across, he's bleeding down from burnout. Forbidden is going to auto-attack him to death. I say that, but there we go, Flame Breath will eventually finish Kuban off in a slightly messy dive, but either way, there's no one to contest, so another kill to Cloud9.
Cloud9 are looking very strong right now. They have themselves a good lead, and they might be caught out in the bottom lane.
Yep, Stranglethorns comes up, Makler still wailing on Voidor, Jarman just trying to block the route, jumps backwards with Relentless Pursuit, now using the culling to minimal effect, and the cuddling will not quite connect all the way. Now, with Chuyu coming in from behind, all the junglers converging on the bottom lane, we are trying to see the reaction play from Cloud9. I'm not sure if it's going to be in time. Magata already using his ultimate, chaining it in with the huge damage from Chuyu, has gone quite deep onto Ku and Forbidden, who have now arrived into the bottom lane. Huge grasping roots, re-engagement from Chuyu, and the reset, jumps in with Shunpo, looking for, again, the Sinister Steal, and just not quite pick up the kill onto Forbidden, but that's 2 kills in the bottom lane.
A really good roam there out of the MYM team. They knew they had to get something done because they were falling further and further behind. They're only 300 gold down now, and the fact that they got a kill onto Katarina is going to give her even more gold to go towards the itemization to make sure in these early team fights she gets the resets to get it to snowball. And that'll kind of offset the snowballing a little bit that Cloud9 have, because if they can stall out Kassadin and Kha'Zix, Katarina will kind of do a similar, well, she will do a similar job in the team fights, and may be able to do it better as long as she doesn't get locked down.
Yeah, Mundo just dropped incredibly low as he slightly underestimated the burst damage from Odamne when he has picked up a Blazed Rune King first item, but Kha'Zix heading around the side. So, in many ways, Forbidden is dead. He's not dead, he's just jumping back to turret. But in many ways, focusing the bottom lane is a good and bad thing. It's a double-edged sword, and Ku actually picks away the blue buff. I'm not actually sure how he did that. I didn't see the animation on any ability. It might have been a void spikes at close range, but in the bottom lane, yes, they're being focused, but with mid lane doing so incredibly well, with top lane really in good shape, picking up a Blade of Rune King 2-0 and 2-0 and 0, then they can afford to have that weak gap.
MYM is starting to rotate really well, though. They've taken 2 towers now with just good positioning from Chuyu, Makler, and Libic, and I'm wondering whether they can keep that momentum going and keep getting picks in these lanes and around the jungle, because if they can do that and prepare themselves for Dragon, they can take the gold lead in this game, and Cloud9 are not a team that we've seen really be behind in the gold lead.
Yeah, and it's close enough where this Dragon will swing it one way or the other, so now with that spawning in 30 seconds, we'll have to see if Mundo uses his teleport, which is on 30 seconds cooldown, so we'll be up basically when Dragon spawns. Shyvana will need to make a play there prematurely, or have to go into the top lane and try and be the extra split pushing threat. So we'll see what Odamne does, because that will show what Cloud9 are going to do. Yeah,
Dragon has come up, and with Ku in the bottom lane, it's a little bit of a risky play to go and take Dragon right now for Meet Your Makers, but Ku might be caught out here as Libic and Makler are looking for him.
Oh, he was trying to catch Makler, jumps forward using Flash, Void Spikes lands, Red Buff already finishes him off, and this is an easy double kill before Vi arrives. Now with Ku trying his best to use Taste Their Bit, jumps in, does not even interrupt his leap in time, double kill, 2-for-1 trade, they'll take that, but now they do not have the smite, but they don't have the members to contest.
Yeah, Vi is a champion that can begin to pretty much solo Dragon at this point in the game, but Makata doesn't feel all that confident in doing it, so not too surprised with it. They don't want to take it riskily. As you can see, Voidal and Jarman are around this bottom lane anyway, so it's a bit too risky a play to do it right now, but I think that's just erring on the side of caution out of MYM. They are still about 1,000 gold behind, so they need to start rotating again like they were doing earlier, but you saw how those early items and early kills on Ku has really set Ku nicely for this game. Looks like he's building towards an Ancient Golem now with that Kindle Gem and the Spirit Stone, so looking to maybe get that extra tankiness just to make sure he doesn't die quite so quickly.
I do feel, though, that when we hit teamfight stress, we're going to see a lot of people dying, and we might see the Baron dying at 16 minutes. I mean, we saw this yesterday, and we see... Who was it? It just walked past Baron, just casually stole it, walked out and died. It was JWoww. He's not in this game, thankfully, but... they are just grinding it down. Adamne's very low. Casting comes in to assist, basically to tank it up. They should be able to do it. They've got the damage juggle down. But is anyone going to react? The answer is going to be no. This could be a 17-minute Baron.
Oh, it looked like Ku actually aggroed Baron for enough would kill him, but Odoamne stepped in just at the right time to make sure the attack didn't go off. But that's a power play there out of Cloud9 and shows you just how comfortable they are right now in this game. They know, well, they must feel that the gold lead isn't quite as large as they'd like it because of those towers falling in favor of MYM, but Baron gives them a big spike in gold and gives them a big spike in power and the ability to push now, and that's what we've seen out of Cloud9, is that acceleration, which is very similar to their North American counterparts.
Indeed, and well, we see MYM picking up the Dragon, but I don't think they're going to be too concerned about that after picking up Baron, so right now, Meet Your Makers have just been like, well, what do we do? Do we just go back to laning phase? Do we force a fight, which we can't with Baron? But Baku might be caught as he jumps into the into the Dragon Pit. And Chuyu heading around the side, can't quite clean this up. But when we do eventually hit full-on team fights, you do feel that most of the members in that fight are going to die. There is a lot of cleanup potential, looking at 2 assassins and an assassin on the team of Meet Your Makers, who can all instantly get those resets.
Yeah, the one saving grace I think that MYM have here is the fact that they have a champion with a similar role to the Kazakhs. If they can get their assassin to kill more faster than Kazakhs, then they might be good here, but Kuban is in trouble in the top lane.
Yeah, Adamne just ground him down. It looked like Mundo was going to win. Adamne got his entire rotation back up and murdered him.
It's something you've got to be careful of when you're fighting against a dragon, that it doesn't just turn around and kill you. That tends to be a little bit of a problem, but you can see Chuyu is looking to farm out, but Forbiven hops over the wall.
Yep, Void Walk does hit him once, but Chuyu chunked down to about half. He cannot survive another combo from Kasten, so he's going to have to back off immediately. And there's so many threats from all across the board. Forbiven can take off 50% of someone's HP. Ku will take off all of your HP, as demonstrated in the bottom lane. Culling comes across, picks up the kill, locked underneath the turret from Makata, 1-for-1. I don't think they can go any further on Jarman unless he stays around. Karma coming down to assist, and smart reaction from Makate.
And that's the problem Ku has, is if he gets locked down, he can only really get the one until he's free from that crowd control. And if that happens too much, it's just going to affect their team fight. Likewise, that does happen to Katarina as well. It's not a problem exclusive to Ku. It tends to be just a problem with assassins in general, is that if you're locked down, you can't become a reset assassin. It just is what happens. But something that kind of feels a little bit weird watching an MYM game without Charu is Kuban has teleport, but meanwhile in the bottom lane, Jarman is looking aggressive.
Yeah, Forbidden instantly deletes him underneath that turret. Makler still following up because he knows Vi and also Katarina coming in from the side. And those are some free resets if I've ever seen one. Voidal lands a perfect Q but walks into a trap. He does not want to become a reset as Makler is wailing away at him. Sinister Steel into Bouncing Blades and does not quite catch up for Death Lotus, and they might actually decide to turn this one around, but Vi is heading in. 4 versus 3. Chuyu picks up 1 in return for his own life, and Makata wants to get out of dodge. Ku has finally returned since this fight has been so long.
Yeah, now they've got to be careful that the same doesn't happen in reverse, that Ku doesn't just jump in and annihilate Makler, as he's very low on health. But it looks like Cloud9 once again smartly playing the map control game, taking away the buffs, making sure they have the vision control around the jungle that you come to expect from a team like Cloud9 Europe.
Yeah, so they have a lot of threats over the board, as we've already mentioned, but then they can start splitting up those threats and making it very difficult to 1v1 them, and then there's going to have to be smart rotations from Meet Your Makers to really deal with that. Because Kha'Zix's 4, 3, and 2 as the jungler is very scary. Shyvana 3-0-0 picked up a damage item and a full defensive item at 21 minutes as superb timing. So it's really the pressure is up for MYM to try and push out Cloud9. Now that the Baron buff is worn off, it gives them a little respite, but it's still going to be difficult because of that gigantic gold lead.
And looking at that gold lead, a lot of it is in the top lane, where we can see Odoamne is still pushing in Kubon heavily. Now, most of the gold lead, 3,500 gold to be exact, is the difference between the top laners. 300 and 226 CS to 133. So that has got a massive advantage for Shyvana here over Mundo. You can see that in just the completed items alone.
Yeah, and Q jumping onto Levick. It's going to be 4 versus 2, but it already takes out 1. As long as Jarnan can escape with his life, it will probably be worth it. Chiyu jumps over the wall, and Jarnan retreats with flash. Forbidden has arrived. They have huge amounts of burst. Makata jumps over the wall, does not have his ultimate, cannot go any further, and Karma also reacting. So, again, a 1-for-1 trade.
MYM are playing scared even when they had the numbers advantage there. They didn't have vision on Karma, so I think it's the right play to pull back. But they've got to take their opportunities when they're 3v2, because they're not going to get opportunities like that very often.
Yeah, indeed. And just take a look at top lane. Kubon was not taken down in time and has already regenerated most of his HP. So, over time, even though Kubon is significantly behind, he can just sustain over time against Odoamne as long as he doesn't get instantly bursted down, which is exactly what Forbidden's trying to do. Looking for this long-range rift walk over that wall. But again, another great reaction from Meet Your Makers. They're all over this.
Cloud9 have been stalled out past the Baron, and now they don't have the Baron buff. MYM are looking to engage.
Yeah, Chuyu taking some damage. Dragon set for the re-engage. I don't think Forbidden was reading from the same page. Chuyu getting completely melted by that Shyvana, though. Libic has retreated back to turret. Makata has arrived along with Ku. That is a reset train, but he's going too far underneath the turret. Communication not quite here. Grasping Roots underneath the turret again. Voidal into the top lane. Ku going a little too deep.
I feel like a broken record, but Ku's got to be careful. He can't just go straight in because he's Kha'Zix. Forbidden, however, will go straight in.
Yeah, and cutting from the side.
Yeah, Makler gets absolutely melted there. Not even enough time for me to pass it over to you. But Cloud9 will take themselves a couple of kills and now reset themselves. Baron is up in 15 seconds. We've already seen them clear Baron incredibly quickly with a pink ward there already. So wouldn't be too surprised to see Cloud9 make sure all of the lanes are shoving, go back, buy all their new items, and then head to that Baron once again.
Yeah, and something that's going to be preying on the minds of Meet Your Makers is that Cloud9 can take that Baron with very few people. They almost took it with 2 members at 16 minutes, 24 minutes into the game. Kha'Zix still doing so well. Shyvana even more kills in the back pocket. Will be able to take down that Baron very quickly, but Meet Your Makers now making the timing play. I'm not sure how good this is considering the Dragons has fallen and cleared out a ward.
Yeah, I think had they got there a little bit earlier, although they have caught Voidal.
They have, with Grasping Roots from Libic on point all this game. Odoamne are now turning up into this top river skirmish and has been used, the Defiant has been used on him. Dragon's Descent comes across, and now Forbidden from the side trying to get himself a kill. Those resets from Kha'Zix, who is still in the bottom lane, but everyone is so low. 4 versus 5. Kubon will drop. Makler and Chuyu escape with their lives, but 3-0. 4 versus 5 here, Stress.
A really nice set of pickoffs there. 3 kills to 0, as you mentioned. And Cloud9 now have full control of this game. They've had a goal lead for a while. And MYM say, let's head to game number 2, because there's the surrender vote with 12,000 gold in the lead. That one MYM felt was pretty much over, and they want to get themselves composed and head to another game.
Yeah, that Baron play at the end was basically a desperation play because they knew Cloud9ers are going to go back. We can't rush it. Cloud9 come back in with all their new items. We can't head on fight them. They will bait us in the jungle. There's so many bad scenarios that outweigh the good ones, but let's just head into game 2.